introduction. So welcome everyone. We are here with Herzing College and Encubate Immigration Services today. We're going to be covering the topic of immigration to Canada or immigration pathways to Canada through education, specifically focused on international students and how to do so with Herzing programs. Tony's going to start talking a little bit more and introducing Herzing from his end. He's here representing Herzing, and then I'll jump on towards the end of the presentation to talk more about those immigration pathways and what available options you have as international students. So Tony, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tony Lamanto. I'm the admissions director for Herzing College here in Montreal. My role is predominantly working with the admissions team or leading the admissions team from an international perspective. So we have a lot of experience with international students. We've been doing that for many years. I've been here 10 years myself, and I've been involved with international recruitment for the last 8 years, I would say. So I've traveled pretty much all over or various different countries recruiting. I just want to remind everybody that our college is very well adept at recruitment for international students. So we understand their needs, we understand the requirements that they have, and we also understand some of the challenges that international students face when they come and travel and come and study across country. For that, I'm very grateful to do what I do. I enjoy doing what I do. I have a great team also that supports international recruitment. And again, we're all on the same page when it comes to support and assistance. You can always reach me by email. My email is that's fine. You can always reach me by email and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. So Herzing College, we've been around since 1965, and we have campuses in Montreal, Toronto, and Winnipeg. We offer programs in English and French. And again, I think our success in education is the fact that we bridge the gap between employers and graduates. So we understand the employer needs, and our programs are very much in high demand, and at the same time meet the requirements of the employer. So we're constantly fine-tuning our programs in order to meet the requirements of the employer. And students, when they study here at Herzing College, they learn all the necessary skills to be able to begin to work immediately right after their program. So all our programs have co-op opportunities, anywhere from 4 weeks to 12 weeks. There are programs anywhere from 15 months to 24 months, depending on what program the students are interested in. Yeah, so that's it. I mean, again, our school has been around 58 years right now, and we are recognized by the Minister of Education and Higher Education. The programs are all very much career focused, and our instructors are basically industry experienced. So which means if we have an interior design instructor, well, that instructor has already worked in the design arena or area. Programs are all vocational programs that lead to a certificate or diploma. Pretty much, like I said, 15 to 24 months, and they all have co-op opportunity to be able to get some hands-on experience, so that when you do enter the workforce or you do go to interviews, you have some type of experience already, and an exposure, let's say, in a corporate or company environment. Okay. Yeah, okay. I mean, I kind of summarized all that already. Yeah, so we could move forward. And like I said, I just want to remind people that our programs are offered in English and French, and they're programs that are in very high demand right now. We get a lot of companies that call us and ask us if we have any available interns to be able to start working at their companies immediately. Okay, thank you.
Awesome, thank you, Tony. All right, So we'll move on to the Encubate part. Just a quick introduction from my end. My name is Maria Garces. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, an RCIC, and an active member and good student of the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants. I've been working with Encubate for almost 4 years now, and I've specialized in our consultations and legal teams. So I do understand a lot the needs for our clients, and I do have experience with providing solutions with immigration pathways and immigration avenues that may be available for them. We'll talk about our consultations services a bit towards the end, but for those who may need support in other languages, I do speak Spanish as well, and our team speaks other languages that I will show in a second. And this is our principal consultant and founder of Encubate, Mr. Basil Sauter, also an RCIC. And he's been, he's been working with economic-based immigration, family immigration, all sorts of immigration to Canada and the US for almost 10 years now. And yeah, we'll move on a little bit to our team. The reason we like to show this slide is because all of our team initially came as a temporary residents or came with a completely different background from their home countries, and now are in their way or have already achieved their permanent residency or citizenship to Canada. And what we intend to tell or transmit with this slide is that regardless of your background, your skill sets, your previous education, there is a pathway for immigration, but there is no one pathway that fits all. Today, we're going to be covering the main streams that we see for immigration, but our recommendation is always to sit down, look at your circumstances, and analyze this case by case. We count with 3 licenses, and we are also authorized to represent in the province of Quebec. They do require a special or an additional process, approval process, which we'll discuss in the next few slides, but we can process anything from CAQs, CSQs, and all federal and provincial related immigration matters. We have 4 offices, our main one being in Toronto, Vancouver, where I'm located today, Calgary, and in Montreal. And we can obviously assist you if you are offshore as well. We have assisted clients from all over the world. As I said, we count with many years of experience in the industry, not only supporting skilled immigrants from all over the world, but also schools and students who are already in Canada or who are on their way to Canada. And we offer our services in English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and Arabic. So if you prefer to approach it with any of these languages, we'll be happy to assist you as well. Now, a little bit about how we categorize our services or our offerings. We divide them into 2 main groups, into temporary resident services, TRS. This includes anything from visitor visas, ETAs, study permits, work permits, and extensions of such. And PRS, permanent resident services, so anything from federal to provincial immigration programs, permanent residence cards, and citizenship. Now, we're going to start covering the basics of how to get a study permit, how can I study in Canada, what's required, what's authorized, which is very important to know when you're still not familiarized with the Canadian immigration aspect or the authorizations that you have as a student. So in order to study in Canada for a program that is over 6 months in duration, the totality of the program, including also the co-op period, we will require a study permit. The study permit is an application that's made to the federal government. If you're outside Canada, you would submit this from outside Canada. And if you're inside Canada, you have ways to apply for inside Canada and submit it to an office from inside Canada. Again, programs that are over 6 months in duration. However, if you want to study in Quebec, you will also need an authorization from the Ministry of Quebec. This is called a CAQ, a Certificate of Acceptance to Quebec. Again, this is for programs that are over 6 months in duration, and this needs to be obtained prior to the study permit. So if you're going to study to Herzing's Montreal campus, you need to ensure that you give yourself enough time to first apply for a CAQ, which that can take anything from 2 to 3 months. And then once the CAQ is obtained, you can apply for your study permit with IRCC, which could take anything from 3 to 6 months, depending on where you're applying from. Now, if you want to come to Canada only as a visitor first, maybe study a short language program or just to visit and check it out, you can apply for either a temporary residence visa or an ETA, electronic travel authorization, depending on your country of citizenship. So based on Canada's agreements and relationship with other countries, you would either be eligible for a temporary resident visa, which gets stamped on your passport, or an ETA, which is linked to your passport. But again, with this, you will only be allowed to travel and stay in Canada, come in as a visitor, or up until the duration that the officer allows you at the border for up to 6 months. Now, as I mentioned, there are certain ways that one could apply for a study permit inside Canada. Generally speaking, an application for a study permit needs to be submitted from outside, and an office abroad needs to review and process that application. However, there are certain circumstances that allow you to apply for a study permit from inside Canada. The main common one, and the one that we could explore if you were to attend one of Herzing's programs, is by what we call doing a pathway program with a conditional LOA. LOA stands for letter of acceptance. A pathway program is basically a language program that prepares you for the necessary language level that you need for that academic program, for that LOA. This language program can be either in English or French, but what it will basically do is prepare you. These are usually partnerships that the school will have with language schools or their own programs. It will prepare you for the necessary level to get admitted to the program. What's very important here is that the school, Herzing, needs to issue or will issue you a CLOA, a conditional letter of acceptance, which clearly sets the conditions for you to get admitted. And the condition here would be needs to complete X amount of weeks or X amount of months at this pathway program to obtain the necessary level. Once we have completed that level, we are eligible to apply for a study permit from inside Canada. And there's many advantages that come with this, such as lower refusal rate, no need to demonstrate ties to your home country, and just less documentation overall if we submit an application from inside Canada. So if you have the opportunity, you're thinking about applying for a study permit, and if you believe you need a preparatory course such as a pathway program to get admitted, this is a great opportunity for you to submit that application inside Canada. Something to highlight here, if you're from any of these countries, is that Canada has simplified the process of applying for a study permit for certain countries. And when I say simplified, they have created a program or a stream called the Student Direct Stream, SDS. And what this means is faster processing times, less risks of refusal, but it does come with a bit more requirements than a regular study permit. So the list got extended last year, and it's about all these countries that are listed here as of today. And we have included here the latest refusal rates that we have per country. To be very honest, these vary. Some of these do stay within these ranges, but do not get discouraged if you're from any of these countries and you see a high refusal rate. What we highly recommend when you have doubts about applying for a study permit is to get consulted, understand what are your circumstances and what you need to demonstrate in your study permit applications to overcome any potential refusal risk, such as ties to your home country. How are we going to prove to the officer that we're coming back home, or how this program will benefit for your future career goals back home. Okay. Now, let's talk a little bit more about studying in Quebec. Just a quick few details about the CAQ process. Like I mentioned a few slides ago, If we want to study in the province of Quebec, we need to first get the certificate from the ministry. It is a simpler process than a study permit application, but it's still something to keep in mind, again, when it comes to processing times and documents needed. So this gets submitted not to the federal government, but to the provincial government. We will require a letter of acceptance from the school. And depending on where you're applying from, you will be required to demonstrate certain financials and insurance documents. Very important here is that MIFI, or the government department in charge of issuing the CAQs, does not accept conditional letters of acceptance, meaning that if we want to come and study for a program that's over 6 months, we need to make sure that we've already met the conditions in that letter of acceptance. It is now being submitted online. This used to be paper-based, but it's now submitted through the portal. And they are taking anything from, I would say, 3 to 6 weeks at the moment to process. So again, keep that in mind when preparing the entire timeline of your study permit application. Let's talk now a little bit about how can someone work in Canada. So especially focusing on the after of your studies. Just a quick reminder here that while you're studying in Canada, you're eligible to work for up to 20 hours per week while you attend academic sessions. That is considered part-time. And you're authorized to study full-time while on student breaks. So for example, Christmas break, spring break, if scheduled by the school. And during your co-op period, which Tony was mentioning at the beginning. Herzing programs do have a co-op period. For those of you who don't know co-op, it's an internship or a practicum part of the program. But now let's talk about how can you work after you graduate from those studies. Now, we are mainly going to look at what we call closed work permits or employer-specific work permits. I'm going to give you an overview of what employer sponsorship looks like in Canada after this slide. But just wanted to show you here that there are many, many avenues that could be based on your language proficiency in French, could be based on your nationality, if your country of nationality has a free trade agreement with Canada, or it could be based on the type of job offer that you have that could exempt your employer from needing an LMIA, a labor market impact assessment. Why do we put this slide here? Most students or even employers are under the misconception that, first of all, the employer sponsorship process is hectic, is impossible, and they just refuse to go through it. And again, this is a case-by-case process, and we would assess each scenario, each case based on its own merits, its own circumstances. But generally speaking, if we identify the right position with the right candidate, there is a good chance of proceeding with that employer sponsorship. So do not be scared, or employers should not be scared of this process. However, if they want to save their time going through an LMIA and you are eligible for any of these free trade agreements, this is something that we've seen with previous students that they bring up to their employer during their co-op period, so that when they graduate, they have the opportunity to continue working under one of these work permits. And these work permits are key because they will allow you to obtain Canadian work experience, qualified work experience that will count towards your permanent residency application in the future. Unfortunately, every hour of work experience that you obtain in Canada as a student does not count towards qualified work experience for permanent residency. But the experience that you obtain under any of these permits, open work permits, or just a work permit on its own will count towards that Canadian experience class. Now, really quick, because I don't want to confuse you, and I know this is a lot of information, but just for you to get an idea of what the labor market impact assessment or the employer sponsorship process entails, the employer needs to extend you a job offer for any type of position that is full-time, at least 30 hours per week, and it's from a Canadian employer. They need to advertise this position for 4 consecutive weeks in 3 different methods of advertising, 3 different platforms. And after those 4 weeks, they need to prepare a report and demonstrate to the government, to ESDC, which is employment branch of the government, that they have conducted all the recruitment efforts that were available to them, to demonstrate that there are no candidates in the Canadian labor market, so Canadian citizens or permanent residents, that can do this job or that apply for this job, and hence we're asking for permission to hire a foreign national. Once that permission is given by the government, which is currently taking 2 to 4 weeks to get approved, so it's pretty fast, the employer would give that positive labor market impact assessment to the foreign worker or the student, and they would be able to switch to workers and start accumulating that, apply for the work permit and start accumulating that qualified work experience. Okay, so we focus so far on coming as a student. What can I do after I graduate? When it comes to work permits, I want to obtain Canadian work experience, have a job offer. Again, there are many exemption codes, so we would advise you case by case here. But if not, an LMIA, you can do this regardless of your country of nationality. It's more based on the position and the efforts that the employer has done to recruit in the Canadian labor market. And now we're going to talk about what are those PR options, what are those permanent residency avenues and pathways that we can consider after we graduate. Generally speaking, this is a very broad permanent residency pathway overview, but generally speaking, we have the temporary residence route, so immigrating through your studies or your work in Canada, which we'll talk about today, immigrating as a skilled professional, which we'll also discuss, and this does not necessarily need require you to have any experience or studies in Canada, but rather focuses on your skill set, your languages, and your education. We'll also talk about this. You may also immigrate through one of the federal or provincial programs as a business immigrant or as an investor. There's also the option of applying for your permanent residence through the family immigration category, the family class. And here we also have the spousal sponsorship. Again, if eligible, and you're the spouse of a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. And last but not least, you could also contemplate the refugee or asylum class. But again, this is case by case. We're only going to focus today on the first 2, which is immigrating through your skills, your work, and your studies. Okay. As a skilled professional, we have summarized the main avenues that we see. Just to let you know, there are over 60 provincial programs as of today available, all of them very different. But we have summarized here the main routes that we find, or that some of these programs share and have similarities in. So you can focus on providing an advanced level of one of the official languages, either English or French, in combination with other factors that we'll discuss in the next slides. If you don't want to, or you cannot really achieve that advanced level in one of those languages, you can focus in demonstrating at least an upper intermediate level in both official languages, which are English and French. You can also focus on studying in Canada, or, as I mentioned earlier, acquiring qualified Canadian work experience to one of the provincial or federal programs. Having a job offer in Canada will also open you many doors for immigration, or moving to a smaller province or community that has lower requirements when it comes to languages and job offers. Now, the system that manages the applications and invitations for candidates under the economic class, it's called Express Entry. It's an online system, and it is used at a federal level. It's important to understand that, because this is crafted, or this is available for those who intend to reside in any province outside of Quebec. We'll see that Quebec has its own immigration system and their own conditions to meet if you're willing to, or if you're interested and intending to move to that province. But we're going to focus today mainly on Express Entry at a federal level. So what are the factors that are taken into consideration under Express Entry? First of all, it's important to understand that it is an online system. It is a point-based system. So what this means is that once we include our details, fill in our profile, we will be awarded with a score. We call this a CRS score, Comprehensive Ranking System score. And this score will determine the likelihood of getting invited in the next draws. Why? Because the system selects candidates on the bi-weekly draws that the government does. So every 2 weeks, the government comes and issues a certain number of invitations to apply. And once we receive an invitation to apply, we are eligible to formalize an application for permanent residence and submit it to the government process. Now, what are the factors that determine the score and that will get us that potential invitation to apply? We've listed here the 4 key ones, but keep in mind that there are other adaptability factors such as family members in Canada, previous experience in Canada, education in Canada, and so on. But generally speaking, what will really give you the core of your score are these 4 factors here. So starting with, in my opinion, the most important one, which is your languages. At least try to achieve an advanced level in one of the languages. For English, you can take 2 exams, either the IELTS General Training or the CELPIP General Test. And for French, they're both equally seen under the Express Entry system. So you can choose either or, whichever you're more proficient at. You can choose the TEF or the TCF Canada. Second factor, also very important, your education, whether that's completed in outside or inside Canada. If it's outside Canada, you need to go through a process called an educational credential assessment, which is it's an equalization process for your foreign studies. And if you studied in Canada, no need to do so. Third is your work experience, whether it's in Canada or abroad, it needs to meet certain requirements. Requirement number 1, being in a position that it's considered qualified under the tier or the NOC classification tier 0, 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to make a quick comment here, which is that Canada classifies their job positions based on the National Occupational Classification System. This shortens for NOC. And we find 6 levels under the system, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but only 0 to 3 are considered qualified for immigration purposes. And this classification is done keeping in mind the level of education that each job requires, the years of experience, and the seniority or managerial level. Okay. And also the work experience, if it's outside Canada, it needs to have been obtained in the past 10 years. And if we are claiming any points for Canadian experience, it needs to have been obtained in the past 3 years. It needs to be at least for 1 year, whether that's inside or outside Canada. And what the government considers full-time work is at least 30 hours per week. And lastly, we put it last because there's not much we can do about this factor, is age. Unfortunately, it does also impact our score in Express Entry. Once we reach 30, we start losing 5 points for every year that we turn. But not to worry, if you're over 30, doesn't mean that you're out of the pool. We'll just need to compensate with other factors such as languages or other adaptability factors. Very important to keep in mind that the current draws, so the cutoff score that we're seeing at the moment, is 490. The last one that took place last week was for 486. So we expect the range of 480 to 490 for the next few months. Now, how do we reach to that score? How do we get to maximize our score in Express Entry so that we can get that invitation to apply? We can focus on, as I said, obtaining an advanced level of English or French, whichever is our preferred primary language. We'll talk about the benefits of French in the next few slides, but for now, just focus that one of the languages needs to be at an advanced level. We can also focus on the education factor, which in here, ideally, we would want to demonstrate the equivalent to a master's degree, could be outside Canada, or the combination of a bachelor's degree plus a 1-year diploma in Canada. And keep in mind that 1-year diploma, it's considered 8 months academic. So, for example, if you were to have your bachelor's degree or a 3-year program at a technical school back home, in combination with a one-year diploma in Canada, where that's in a public or private institution, the points that you get awarded for transferability are the same as for a master's degree. So don't worry if you don't have a master's degree, you could combine your bachelor's or your 3-year program with your 1 year of studies in Canada, and again, reach for that advanced level in one of the languages. Number 3, work experience, maximize the points for this. So we get the maximum points for work experience if we demonstrate 3 years. 3 years will give you the same points as 20 years. And again, this is considering outside Canada. But if you don't have this, then we'll have to look for ways to compensate with your experience inside Canada. And lastly, your age. If we stick within the range of 18 to 29, we won't be losing any points for age. But as I said, if we are 30 or above, it is not the end of the game. We can compensate it with other factors such as French, which brings me to my next slide. So you surprisingly can benefit way more from having French as a second language, or as a upper intermediate, at least an upper intermediate level in your express entry profile, when combined with at least an intermediate level of English. And you can get more points for this than, for example, a job offer in Canada. Announced almost 3 years ago, the government, with the purpose of attracting more Francophone immigration to Canada, doubled the score that you can get for bonus points in French in your express entry profile. So 50 points is what you can get as bonus if you achieved it at what we call a CLB 7. That's a B2 in French, or an upper intermediate across all disciplines in French. And you have at least an intermediate level of English, which we said in all cases we'll need to demonstrate. And then you get 12 points additionally for second language. So you get a total of 62 points if you achieve French at a CLB 7, which again is more than a job offer in Canada. So highly, highly recommended if you have, first of all, you have interest in learning French. If you have some sort of base and you just want to build more a little bit on it, highly recommend focusing on it, because it can really compensate for any other points that we cannot get either through age or level of education, and so on. Another great advantage for French is the LMIA exemption code C16. It lets you access as a foreign worker. It lets you access to an LMIA exemption code. And again, what this means is that the employer will be exempted from having to sponsor you because you meet certain requirements. In this case, you would be meeting or you would be falling under the International Mobility Program, specifically the Francophone Mobility section. What this allows for candidates is to apply for a closed work permit directly with the employer. If you have a job offer in the province in any province or territory outside of Quebec, in a qualified occupation, like we mentioned earlier, tier 0, 1, 2, or 3, and can demonstrate that upper intermediate level of French. So French, job offer upon graduation outside of Quebec, you will be eligible to apply for exemption code C16. Depending on the country that you're from, you can submit that application from outside, inside, or at the border. And what's very cool and interesting about this code is that once you complete your year of experience with this work permit, under the Canadian Experience Class program in Express Entry, you will be eligible to claim 50 points, another 50 points for having a job offer in Canada if you continue to have that job offer with the employer on your work permit. Again, I don't want to overwhelm you with all this information. There's a lot to talk about these LMIA's exemptions and work experience, but I just really want to emphasize the opportunity that French could bring to your immigration options. Which again brings me to my next slide. We're just going to give you an example of a program. Again, there's many more other provinces offer programs for French speakers as well. But in the case of Ontario, they have a program designed for skilled workers, French-speaking skilled workers. It's called the OIMP, Ontario Immigrant Nominee Program for French-speaking skilled workers. And it is focused to attract those who are bilingual, so have an intermediate level in both languages, English and French. You have to demonstrate that you want to reside in that province. and it works with express entry system, which makes the process much faster. Now, what are the requirements for this program? We need to have, as I said, an upper intermediate level in French. This is just an example of one of the exams that are accepted. Again, that's about a B2 in the level of French, and an intermediate, at least a 6 in English. And again, we give the example of the IELTS here. You need to be eligible to open your express entry profile as well, have a minimum of a bachelor's degree, and this could be from back home, and 1 year of experience inside or outside Canada. And that was just one example of one province that uses French to attract skilled workers through their provincial programs. But there are many others, as I mentioned earlier, over 60 provincial programs available as of today in Canada. We have summarized here the main avenues that one can immigrate through a provincial program, but there are many more. Again, based on everyone's circumstances. So let's say, for example, the in-demand occupation or in-demand skills named by some of the provinces. You may immigrate through these provincial programs if your occupation, if your experience is in demand at that point in time in the province. This is a program that works very well and that has been in special search for the past 2 years, as provinces are struggling to find labor in certain industries, certain occupations. So, for example, the Human Capital Priorities Program under Ontario selects candidates based on experience. For example, if they need teachers that specific month or period, they will invite candidates that have the right they have at least 1 to 2 years of experience in that position, and again, meet other requirements such as language, education, and so on. But again, the focus here is on the experience that you have in that occupation. Saskatchewan has a similar program as well. BC, almost every province has a similar program, again, outside of Quebec. You could also immigrate through a provincial program or receive the support of a province if you have a job offer in that province from an employer that meets the requirements for the program. Position needs to be, again, in a qualified occupation, although there are certain provinces that allow for occupations that are considered non-skilled and that are based on, again, in demand, or that there's scarcity of labor in that specific occupation. It is LMI exempt, as in what we say here, job offer is not the same as job offer supported by a labor market impact assessment. And again, outside of Quebec. You may also immigrate very similar and almost in hand with the previous one, with the job offer, with your work experience. At least some provinces recognize 6 to 9 months to even 1 year. Outside of Quebec. So if you work for an employer and you continue to have a job offer, you can immigrate with that work experience. And lastly, through studying in the province, this is mainly targeted for public colleges, although certain provinces allow for private as well, and outside of Quebec. Now that was a lot. I know it was a lot of information in a short amount of time. And what I've just been keep repeating is the fact that every process is different, and we look at case by case, assess your circumstances in order to understand what are your options available and explain this to you. And we do this through our consultation and assessment services. It involves a customized evaluation of your case. Again, we look at all your factors from an immigration perspective and prepare a detailed and customized report with all your options at a federal and at a provincial level. We look at Quebec as well. We look at the temporary foreign worker program and provincial programs too. So if you're interested, we'll leave the details towards the end of the presentation to contact us, and my colleague Benjamin will be happy to assist you. But for now, we're just going to move on to the question section. Please don't be shy. Anything that we've discussed today, whether it's for Herzing programs, or anything related to immigration, please let us know. You're free to either type it on the chat or ask out. You can unmute yourself. Since we're not a lot here today, feel free to do that too. So we'll give a few minutes for you to ask questions. And again, don't be shy. We're here to help you and answer and clarify any questions. So I'll be monitoring the chat here. There you go. Perfect. I see raise hands. Mahmoud, you're free to either unmute yourself or type it in the chat, whatever it works best for you.
Hello, dear. How are you? I hope you're good. Thanks for your information.
Mahmoud, you're cutting a little bit.
Nice. I got a very good clear view. It's because of okay, let me turn off my camera so my internet's a bit weak. That will be fine.
That's better. Okay, sorry, please go ahead. We couldn't really hear the first part.
Okay, so thanks for your information.
My pleasure.
I have applied for Herzing College and I got an admission letter, letter of acceptance. And then I applied for Encubate acceptance letter and I got that as well. Now I'm going to apply for a student permit. I have prepared every document is needed. I just have a simple question. My brother is going to support me financially. And, as per the information which is available in the IRCC website, I got the idea that there should be some letters and some proof. My question is that how can is there any need that I should prove that he is my brother? Like which document should I need to show that
absolutely
he is my brother? And my second question is that since I live in Afghanistan and Kabul city, so during this Taliban government, no IELTS test centers available in Kabul. So the only option for me was TOEFL test. So I gave a TOEFL test and I got 91. And I don't know whether it helped me through my immigration or not, or when I maybe if I got my student permit and when I arrived in Canada, can I have another test TOEFL test there or IELTS test there or not?
Okay, so let's tackle them one by one. First question, yes, since your brother will be your sponsor, it is not specified in the government website, but from our experience, we highly recommend to demonstrate how you're related to your sponsor. In this case, I'll give you a few ideas because it's your brother. You could either use both of your birth certificates. If they're not originally issued in English and French, they need to be translated. Birth certificate is one. Some countries do have family status documents or like a family booklet where all the family members are listed. That could help as well. Or then any other documents where it would be displayed your parents. So any documents issued to your own where both your parents are listed, and any document, the same document for your brother where both parents are listed. The purpose again is to link your relationship. On top of that, if you want to also demonstrate any previous financial support from your brother, such as previous financial transfers or support, any other proof that you can have on top of a letter of sponsorship, which is mandatory, you would be meeting the requirement of demonstrating the access to those funds. Okay, so that's for the first one. And I'm sorry, couldn't really hear well the second question. I understood the background, but couldn't hear the exact question. If you could please repeat it, that would be great.
Sure. My problem is that I live in Kabul, Afghanistan, and there's no test center available for IELTS test. And I had to give a TOEFL test in a test center because that's available. That's the only option in Afghanistan for now. So I don't know whether it will affect my application student permit or even my immigration or not. Do I have to give another TOEFL test when IELTS is when I get to Canada?
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So if you've already met with the admission requirements for the Herzing program, language-wise, you're not required to submit a language test in your study permit application. This is a big misconception as well. It is not a requirement. If you have it, great, you can add it. But if you've already met the language requirement by their own test that they offer or any other partner test that you did to access and to get admitted to the program, you are not required to show any test to immigration. Now, once you come to Canada and you plan for the next steps and to perhaps open an Express Entry profile or start your immigration pathway once in here, you're welcome to take a language test once in Canada. But for your study permit application, if you've already met the conditions, the language conditions for your program at Herzing, you do not need to present a language test.
Just one thing I want to mention, that my name is Abu Said Khaled, but since I'm using one of my friend's laptop,
Okay, perfect.
It is his own account, so by name I'm with one. But actually, my name is Abu Said Khaled, and I got to mention in Herzing College.
Perfect. Awesome. Thank you very much for asking questions. If we can help in any other way for study permit application, I'll leave the contact details at the end of the presentation, okay?
Thank you very much, Ms. Maria.
Thank you. Thank you. Perfect. More questions? No questions?
Hello.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I have a question about the program.
Mhm.
I have a question about the interior design program. I would like to know if it's also being taught at Toronto, because I know it's being taught in Montreal, on the campus at Montreal, but I don't know if it's also at Toronto.
Yeah, I think Tony will help you with that one.
I missed the program you're requesting about. What program?
Interior design.
Okay, no, interior design is only offered here in Montreal.
Okay.
It's a 24-month program. It's known to be one of the better programs actually in Montreal, being offered from Herzing College.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very popular program. It's a very technical program at the same time.
Mhm.
So it's not just
Okay.
about the design, but also in terms of understanding, let's say, conceptualization and how to go about, let's say, identifying technical aspects of any design or any space that needs to be at that point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you in Toronto?
No, I'm in France.
In Toronto?
What was the question?
The question is, are you living in Montreal or Toronto or?
Oh, I'm outside of Canada.
Okay. And you
Yeah.
want to travel to Toronto to take a program, or Ontario, or?
Actually, my first language is English, but I do speak French now since I'm studying in France. So
Okay.
I actually wanted to be around the province where the English is much more. But since the interior design, I'm really interested in your interior design program, and it's only in Montreal.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like I have no choice, but it's also going to help me speak the both languages at the same time.
Well, look, I mean, Montreal, if you're talking about Montreal, yeah, I have the program offered in English and French, which again, if you want to strengthen your French language skills, Montreal would be the place to go. And then if you want to move on to Ontario, you're free to do so. The other aspect of Montreal is that cost of living is a lot less expensive in Montreal than it is in Ontario.
Okay.
That's a factor for you, I mean, which
Mhm.
it would be for a lot of our students. So I highly recommend, if you want information, contact me directly.
Okay.
We can look at it and, and do some type of an assessment to see what would be your better option at that point.
Okay. Can you please rewrite your email in the chat? Because I wasn't able to get it.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Perfect. More
Hello.
questions, guys. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, I came in a bit late. Traffic, and I've been trying to meet up, but sorry I couldn't. But I have a question on project management. Courses on project management I can do. I'm from Nigeria. Yeah, but I'm interested in project management. I have my first degree in textile engineering, majored in polymers, but it's not really doing much for me here in Nigeria. So I'm thinking of what I can do with project management.
Okay, project management. I mean, we don't have a specific project management course. But I mean, if you're looking at project management, there's what they call the PMI Institute, which is the Project Management Institute, which I think is a program based on 5,000 hours of work experience combined, obviously, with the actual program. But that's only being offered at a university level, let's say. What I could offer you, and it's not a project management course, but it has project management in the program, is sustainable architecture. Okay. It's a 24-month program. You have a 12-week co-op with that program, and it's based on the sustainability of construction, of building materials and construction. So a good part of that program is also project management based. So you might want to look at our website and look at the Sustainable Architecture program. It's a program that is very, very high in demand. It's 100% placement rate. So anybody that takes the program gets a job. So we have 100% placement for that program. You learn about estimates. You learn about water filtration systems, let's say in buildings. It's all ecological. You learn about the ecological environments. Building materials that are ecologically approved, how to do estimates. I mean, it's a fantastic program, really is. And again, we're the only one offering that in Montreal. So we're very, very busy with that program. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Your programs, is there any program? From what you suggested, can I get a partial scholarship on them?
A scholarship? Did you say scholarship? Okay. Look, I mean, right now we are offering a $2,000 scholarship on the program. The program is $19,400 plus the administration fees of $6,000. So you're looking at about a $25,000 program, less the $2,000 scholarship, which is at the end. So once you complete the program, we'll give you a $2,000 scholarship on that program. So there's an initial fee to pay, which would be the first semester of the program, which is about maybe $4,200 or something like that, plus a $1,500 administration fee. So every semester, that's the fee. Now, depending on your situation, maybe we could work out a monthly payment scheme at that point to be able to accommodate you. So the initial would be the first semester, which is about 4,000 something, plus 1,500. Let's say the first initial payment will be $6,000, and then we can possibly put you on a payment plan, on a monthly payment plan, if you want to attend the program. But it really is a good program, and I mean, job-wise, it's pretty much guaranteed. Yeah. So the scholarship would be added at the end of the program. Okay.
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 But it's all right.
Okay.
I can see your email over here.
Yeah. It's tlobanto@mtl.herzing.ca.
Okay, I'll send you a mail and then we can take it off from there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
More questions regarding programs or the college?
I just have, with your permission, I just have one question from Ms. Maria. My question is that do I have to pay my tuition fee before applying for study permit or after? Because I have already prepared sufficient fund to support my education in Canada, but I don't know if I pay my tuition fee and I don't receive my student permit, will be the problem, like will I receive my money back or not? the other document needed to show that my brothers are sponsoring me or support education. I just want to know this. Thank you.
Okay, I'll answer part of it, and the other part, maybe Tony, or you can contact the Herzing team to answer it. When it comes to the study permit part, you're not required to pay all your tuition fees upfront. However, we recommend to pay to an extent to show to the officer that you are committed to your program, and that you are, and again, this will lower than the amounts that you need to show for the rest of financials. So keep in mind that for all study permit applications, we need to show two main costs. Cost number one is your tuition fees. So the more you have paid already upfront, the less you'll have to demonstrate in that end. Again, not mandatory to demonstrate all, but it's a good way to prove to the officer that you have committed intentions to start that program. And then cost type number two is your living and your monthly expenses, your day-to-day expenses, cost of living, which outside of Quebec is $10,000 for the first year of studies. And in Quebec, it's about $13,000 if you're coming on your own. So just keep in mind that when demonstrating those funds, keep these two costs in mind, cost of living and tuition. And again, tuition, if you, for example, paid your entire first year of tuition, you will not need to demonstrate those tuition fees as part of your financials. When it comes to whether these tuition fees will get refunded if your study permit is refused, that's something that I don't know if Tony, if you can answer that, or he needs to contact the team.
Okay, so if I understood the question correctly, because you were breaking up as you were talking, everything is refundable. I mean, if you get a study permit refusal, we refund you your tuition, initial tuition and administration fee payment. The only thing that is not refundable is the $250 registration fee. I mean, and that's obviously understandable because we do the work to get you that letter of acceptance. So we evaluate your file, we process it, we open up a file for you, we send you the letter of acceptance, and so on and so forth. And at that point, that's not refundable. It's $250. That's it. But the rest of it, I mean,
thank you very much, Mr.
Yeah, the rest of it is 100% refundable, 100%.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you, Tony. Perfect. All right. So I think we're coming to the end of this presentation. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating, asking your questions. We're glad we could help you. Tony, we have one more question in the chat. Let me answer that. I have a question about, I think this one's for you, Tony. I have a question about leadership program or HR program. What is the semester fee or admission fee?
Okay, again, I mean, leadership program, we don't offer that program, or HR. What we do offer are those components of leadership and HR in our business administration program. So those are components that you would study as part of the business administration, sales, and marketing program. That's where that's offered. And again, the business administration program, very high in demand, especially with international students. We also have a complementary or another program, which is international commerce, import and export, which is also very popular. And it also has a leadership and HR component in the program. So one specializes in marketing, the other one specializes in import export. The first two sessions are the same exact program. So it all has, you know, marketing, building a marketing plan. It talks about HR, talks about accounting, talks about management, administration, a bit of finance, and so on and so forth. And then it specializes at the last session. It will specialize. You'll go into either import export, or you go into marketing and sales. But to have a specific program just on leadership or human resources, we don't offer that. That's a specialization. I mean, again, it's part of there are components within our programs is what they are. And again, you have to understand that our programs are very much accessed towards getting a job in the end. So you will learn the core modules, the core components of the program. So if you want to become a programmer analyst, for instance, you're going to learn everything about programming, the different platforms, different languages, different tools. You're not going to learn elective programs like geography or history or mathematics, et cetera, et cetera. And this is the same thing with the business administration or the import-export program. You learn technically, all the components are based on learning about the actual core program, business, marketing, and sales. Okay. Any more questions?
Perfect. I think that's it. All
Okay.
right. Thank you, everyone, once again. We will be,
I think there's Mahmoud Khan has a question.
but I think that was from his
Oh,
previous
okay.
question. Yeah, I'll just lower the hand there. Perfect. Okay.
Cool.
Oh, and Hifsa, it's asking about the fees, but I believe that he could email you directly and you provide more information on the fees for these programs, Tony?
Oh.
Perfect, awesome.
Please.
So,
Look, if you want to contact me directly, not a problem, but briefly, the fee structure for that program is $15,850 plus the $6,000 administration fee. So you're looking at about $22,000, and the same breakdown. We'll take a first semester payment and one quarter of the 6,000 as an initial tuition fee, and then we'll structure it out on a monthly basis. Okay.
perfect.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. We have recorded this session, so Tony will get that recording and shared afterwards.
Right.
But if you have any questions to Tony, the Herzing team, his email is on the chat. And if you have any questions for us, Incubate, visa-related, work permit, or immigration-related questions, you can contact my colleague Benjamin at this email here, connect@incubate.ca. And once again, we hope this was an informative session. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and we hope to see you in future webinars.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good week. Bye-bye.